Hi, I'm Jim. Welcome to my shop. Let me cut your mop. Great. No, okay. No, it isn't Bugs Bunny. Today I am building a workbench for a mechanical breadboard in my lab at school. The topic of workbenches has come up for whatever reason, and a lot of people have talked about the EAA Chapter 1000 workbench. There's some really good ideas behind that workbench. The idea is, rather than, like, if you're building an airplane, sometimes you have to build really long things like wings or wing spars, and rather than build a single humongerized workbench, all in one piece, you build some modules, some smaller modules, and you clamp them together. And I think that's a great idea, especially for somebody who's a little cramped for space like I am. I should amend that. I'm not so much cramped for space as my space is overwhelmed with stuff. Okay. I've got a couple things I don't like about that. I'll put, one of the things is, they've got the plywood top and the 2x4 edges, and they make that all flush. Okay. That kind of sucks. It's really, really, really nice to have the edge overhang so that you can clamp to it. I do that all the time. I'm constantly clamping to the edge of this. Of course, the disadvantage to having this overhang here is that if you try to butt them together and clamp them, that's a problem. But I have a solution. Okay, if you make that overhang so that this overhang over here is 3/4 of an inch, then you just take a piece of 2x, stick it in there, and then you clamp them together, and that works just fine. Okay. In terms of the legs, they use 2x4s and 2 layers of 2x4 to make a 4x4. It's a lot of fiddle farting around, I think. My legs are just 1x4s screwed into an L. For the one I'm making today, I'm going to use 1x6 just because I really, really want it to be stiff, so I want some extra space here so I can space my fastenings further apart, just for more stiffness. But the 1x4 is plenty strong for this. And let me show you behind here. This bench with my bandsaw and drill press and compound miter saw, the planers over there, disc sanders here, grinders there. I had a space here for my old air compressor, which that was a bad idea. It made this whole thing too high, trying to squeeze it under. Plus now that the old compressor has a new forever home. It's at the airport, because it's just so loud and obnoxious. I really like my California Air Tools compressor that I bought for here. Quiet, nice. Okay, but anyhow, this has 1x4 legs, and it's holding up just fine. The only thing that hasn't held up on this, I'll have to zoom you in. Hang on. Okay, so these tires, I don't know what the rating on these casters was, but they have these urethane wheels on them. If we go back here to this corner, you can see the urethane's gone, and there's chunks of urethane laying around. Most of it's been swept up and thrown away by now. But apparently I've overloaded those casters, and those have failed. But the 1x4 and drywall screw construction for the rest of the table, that's doing just fine. Okay. And another thing is I use particle board up here. I've heard the argument that plywood is stronger than particle board. I like particle board because it's smoother and flatter and doesn't, plywood tends to come in a big potato chip shape. It's a little bit warped. And this stuff stays pretty flat. And as far as strength, well, it's obviously holding up well under all these tools. So let me take a minute to talk a little about different ways of making legs and how it affects the stiffness. Okay, so here I've got a bunch of different potential table legs. A 1x4 there, 1x6, single 2x4, two 2x4s together, an L shape made up of two 1x4s, and an L shape with two 1x6s. And let's talk about how stiff they are. So a measure of stiffness is the area moment of inertia. Okay, it's a property of the shape of the section. It's not a property of the material. To give you actual numbers in terms of how much it would bend for any given force, that would vary with length, it'd vary with materials. So I'm not going that far, and we're just going to look at this this area moment of inertia, the units being inches to the fourth or centimeters to the fourth, whatever unit system you prefer. So let's take the 1/4 to start with, okay? If I bend it, this way, the flat way, the area moment of inertia, which is directly proportional to the stiffness, is 1.2, okay? But if I try to bend it on edge, if I stand it up on edge and bend it, obviously it's a lot stiffer. And in fact, at 2.7, that's a factor of about 20, right? Yeah. So it's about 20 times stiffer bending a piece of 1/4 on edge, but bending it the flat way, it bends pretty easy. Compare that to a 2/4, okay? Bending it the flat way, it's almost 10 times, maybe 8 times stiffer in the flat way, about twice as stiff if you have it on edge, okay? But let's take a look at a piece of 1/6 for a moment. A little bit stiffer the flat way compared to the 1/2, but not nearly as stiff as a 2/4. But bending it edgewise, it's almost double a 2/4, okay? Because you have the material out so much further out from the centroid, from the middle, okay? If I can control the direction of bending, the 1/6 can be stiffer than a 2/4, okay? Let's take a moment to look at the EAA Chapter 100 bench. And you see that it's got a pair of 2x4s screwed together to make the legs, okay? And let me zoom you in on the leg itself. So there's the drawings of the legs. You have the 2x4 here, and then you have chunks of 2x4 attached to it. So for most of this length, you have, two 2x4s together, okay? So that's this configuration right here, okay? So if it was two 2x4s together, top to bottom, and each one was one solid piece, bending it, the shorter way, we have a area moment of inertia of 7.9 inches to the fourth, and bending it where the two 2x4s are edgewise, we get 11. In this direction, bending it edgewise, it's not much better than that at all, okay? It is better, obviously, bending it this way, okay, with the two 2x4s flat, but at least in theory, okay? Now compare that to taking two pieces of 1x4 and attaching them together in an L shape, okay? So when I do this, my moment of inertia, bending it that way, okay, is 5.3, and trying to bend it this way is 6.8, okay? Not quite as good as the two 2x4s, okay? But, okay, remember these numbers assume that we actually have two solid 2x4s all the way down. If you look at this, we got it chunked and pieced, and depending upon the quality of your joints and how you fit this piece in, you're not going to get that full theoretical double 2x4 bending strength, I don't think. So from a practical standpoint, I would suspect that you would be hard-pressed if you built two workbenches, one using this style leg and one using this style leg with two 1x4s instead of two 1x2s. I don't think you would notice much difference in terms of the leg stiffness. And probably the big difference that you would notice would be due to however you attach it to the remainder of your frame at the top and at a shelf, okay? Now for the table I'm building now, I'm making those legs out of two pieces of 1x6. And if you look at the numbers here, 22 and 26, depending on which way you bend it, way stiffer than even the theoretical stiffness of the two 2x4s. So since I'm going for maximum stiffness on this table with the breadboard on top of it, this is my choice right there, okay? Just basically double the theoretical stiffness of that, even in the strongest direction. The other thing is, by overhanging the top a little bit, I can make this slightly oversized relative to the shelf and still get them out of a single sheet of plywood in the width. You know, if I make my overhang from here to here 1.5 inches, which is 3/4 inch from here to here, you know, I can make this essentially 1.5 inches over the 24 inches and make the shelf 1.5 inches under. And depending on the length you want, you can get the top and 3 shelves, or 2 tops and 2 shelves, or whatever you want, and you can be pretty efficient in the use of your materials. Okay, so that's enough jibber jabbering. I think I've explained the things I would change in the EAA 1000 thing. Oh, and the other thing, mobility. One last thing. You know, this one's on casters just because everything has to be casters in my space here. The one I want to do for work, I'm going to put retractable casters on it, and also adjusters. If you want to make a modular table system and you want to, you know, bolt them together to make something like a wing spar or something like that, you need adjusters on all the legs, unless you want to screw around with wedges because you want to get that ultimate surface flat and level. So I'll be putting adjusters on the one I'm making now, along with the retractable casters. Okay, so with that, let's start making chips. Okay, so since I'm fitting this to a specific rectangular shape for the mechanical breadboard, I can't cut it efficiently to use the particle board efficiently like I normally would for a modular workbench or any workbench. But what you gonna do, eh? I'm going to put this underneath for a leg and an adjuster, okay? And I'm going to leave some extra sticking out here to give me some adjustment room. So that is 30 1/4 inch legs, and I'll cut those out of 1x6. Apparently I can't do simple subtraction. The legs need to be 31 1/4 inches long. And I think that all makes sense. Don't tell my boss, but I'm going to keep all these cutoffs for myself. Okay, so hopefully these are cut to the right length. We can start assembling them and fire up the air compressor here so you can listen to that horrible, horrible noise. And since these are boards from the board, not very straight. Last one. Put the ugly side inside. Okay, good enough. Give me some more glue. What did I do? Cut that 1 inch short. Great. Well, no brains, no headaches. Go cut another. This way. That's better. I guess this makes up for me keeping all those cutoffs now, right? I get to go into my own stock of 1x. Oh well. There's the leg. Okay, so I made some marks at 3/4 and 1.5 inches in from the edges all the way around to help me line everything up. Right now I'm just gluing up these the frame underneath the table. So if I line that up with my marks, that squares things up for me. And then when I flip it over, these marks here at 3/4 will help me center the table on the frame. Rinse and repeat. Ordinarily I'd just lob in a couple drywall screws, or about 5 or 6, and be done with it. But because A, it's for school, and B, I want the maximum stiffness I can get, I'm going to use some carriage bolts. And instead of just lobbing them in by eye, I actually made a little pattern here so I can get the holes in the right place. I put a clamp on that and do some drilling. I can put the first carriage bolt in the middle. Now let me get rid of the clamp so I can drill all the rest of the holes. Nut and washer. Okay, so that's not going anywhere. That's going to be pretty stiff. I didn't glue it because, the grains run cross directions. It just would have made the wood split eventually. Shorter screws would have been better, but when I was at Lowe's, this is the size they had in stock, and I could get a couple boxes of. Yeah, so I'll do the other corners and we'll get back. Okay, so I flipped it over, I set the top down, I used the marks underneath to get it lined up. These clamps are just sitting here, they're butting up against the piece underneath so this one corner would stay in place. All I need to do now, which I don't need these anymore, is mark where the piece underneath is. Okay, next up we'll make the shelf that goes at the bottom and the retractable landing gear. Normally I'd put 3 pieces on top of the shelf, that's the shelf there, around the back and the 2 sides so stuff doesn't fall off, and I'd put the 4th piece underneath here so it's easier to slide things in and out. But since I'm going to be putting the retractable casters underneath, I'm just going to put all of these on top. So, and there's only going to be one shelf, and we'll just have to deal with that. Okay. Somewhere I miscalculated This is 32 and a half. And I got 2 3/4 inches pieces, that's 1.5 inches. So 32 and a half minus 1.5 inches should be 31. And I cut these to 30. Well, that was bright. Okay, well, I guess I generated some scrap. I'll be back. Okay, this wood is about as straight as a dog's hind leg. Okay, so the plan, I put this here on this piece of 2x. That gets me not quite 8 inches from this surface. And if I hinge this along here, when I tip it, end up like this, and that's less than, well less than 8 inches. If I go all the way, that's 5.5. Yeah, it's 2x6, duh. And this is probably going to hang down at some point, but I need a 6 hand. That's about 6 or so inches, so yeah, that should work. Should. Well, we'll try it and see. About there. I guess the position isn't that important, but it doesn't hurt to be consistent. And find an appropriate drill for these screws. That was a close one. Okay, so let's try that again. There's my line. Okay, now that I got it this far, I've been thinking about this. If I replace this with a 2x4, here I got my maximum height. And as it folds, it'll probably, go like this. But once this gets off the ground, it can flop around. And the shorter, I don't need this extra length here. So that's coming off. And I'll cut a couple chunks 2x4. And I have plenty of that just sitting around. So away we go. Okay, now I remember why I originally used a 2x6 here instead of a 2x4. With the wheel pointing this way, this is the approximate distance from the surface, and as I retract it, it doesn't, there's no over center here. If I turn this around, move the wheel further from the pivot, now here you can see the wheel has to go up before it goes down, okay? So I need to move the wheel far enough from this hinge. Here the axle's barely behind that hinge point. So that's why I picked a 2x6. Okay, I'm gonna play with the geometry and decide what I want to do. Okay, I think I like this better. So there's where I am, and this is worst case with the axle this way. And as I come up, it's still going up, and it's about here where it starts to go down. So I've got essentially that much room before it goes over center. So that's pretty safe. That's about 7.5 inches. That's, well, roughly 5.5 because it's a 2x6. So that gives me about 2 inches difference. That should be enough. If the wheel is over on this side, then yeah, there's a huge over center effect, but can't count on that. Okay, I think I'm happy with the way that works. Install the other wheels, and away we go. Okay, so what I want here, I need to position this bottom shelf. And what I want is for this to, this to just clear the ground when this adjuster, or what will be the adjuster of the table leg, is screwed all the way up, as far up as it can get, and then, and then still hit the ground with this out a bit. Okay? So according to my calculations, for this to just clear, according to my measurements, I need to have 5 inches from here to here, and that, so I will measure, position this, and bolt that into place. So for right now, I'm just going to put 1 bolt in each leg, and then that way if I screwed up, there's less, be easier to fix, less to undo, and 1 bolt will hold that in place. So this table is ridiculously stiff. When I had it standing up, I didn't record it, but I was trying to wiggle the legs and stuff, and yeah, it does not move. So that part of my mission has been accomplished, and with no weight on the shelf, 1 bolt is more than enough. Okay, so I'm going to put some bolts in the essentially the back legs, and then I'll flip it upside down so we can start with the adjuster setup, and I'll bring you back then. Okay, so I need something here to put those bolts into. I cut some chunks of 2x6, those fit nicely, but I'm a little concerned, I can glue it and I could screw it and that'd be plenty strong enough. But I'm thinking it wouldn't be much effort if I took a couple blocks and put them like that, and then went like that. Now this absolutely can't move. I don't have to worry about it, splitting along the grain or anything like that. I think that's the easy way to do it, and I'm up for that. Let me get the glue and my air nailer. Okay, that shouldn't go anywhere. I mean, this isn't real super nailed, but it's just going to go in that direction. So that also helps the weight, support this, which is kind of hanging, just hanging by nails. Okay. So I got a spot here about 3 inches in from each way. It's just pull the number out of the air. Let's drill a hole and set this up. Okay. So that's the height that I planned for, at least from what I can figure out. That through there, another nut in the washer on the back to lock it into place when the time comes. So to adjust it, I probably have to loosen the nut on the back, adjust this nut up or down as necessary, then tighten the one on the inside up. That shouldn't be a big deal because this is going to be in one specific place when the mechanical breadboard is being used. So I just have to adjust these to level it and make it even with the other table. Just have to do that once, and then when I need to move it out of the way so we can use the track that goes around the table, I can just flip the wheels down and, you know, then bring it back, and I shouldn't have to re-level it. That's my theory. That's my hope. Okay, 3 more. And we'll turn it right side up, and we're getting close. Okay, we are definitely on the home stretch here. Grab a Sharpie. I just need to make some levers to operate these things. And those pieces of 1x4 that I cut too short before should work out just about perfect. Mark off what I don't need back there. That's plenty of height. I'll make the other one the same height. So I'll trim that corner, maybe do some fancy stuff here. And again, I'll be back. Okay, so like I mentioned in the beginning, having this overhang to clamp to is really handy. Yeah. Okay, so I ran out of camera battery, but I was almost done, so I just finished it up. And here it is in place, sitting with the mechanical breadboard here. It's just got a whole bunch of holes that are threaded. There are holes that are threaded M6 by 10, so you can put, or M6 by 1, I'm sorry. So you can bolt things down to it, and you have a nice, really flat, really stable surface. And I needed the stiffness so that this thing, you know, doesn't move when there's a robot on it moving. And it's pretty darn stiff. I can level it up as needed. And let me point you down a bit. When I need to use this track under here, this is in the way. It's just a matter of could have used a longer lever, I think, but it works. And there it is. Rolls around nice and easy. I can roll it up here out of the way, and life is good. So there it is. So that's that. I hope you found it at least entertaining, if not helpful in some way. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the flip side.